I think people, it's fair to say, judge others very quickly, sometimes on body language, but often on language itself and grammatical structure and syntax. And while it's important to underscore the fact that some communication goes by without feeling that a grammar slip is a big problem, but when you're dealing with business, people rely on effective and accurate communication because that really speaks about yourself as the person who's dealing with a customer, and their trust and confidence in you based upon your ability with grammar and punctuation and communication. With regard to how important language skills are in terms of advancing one's career, I think it's very fair to say that one is noticed very quickly with the ability that you have to speak clearly, effectively, and logically. And if you can write in that fashion as well, you're one of a very few number of people who can do that these days. So it's very important to reflect on that and to put a lot of emphasis on that in your own life. Well, with regard to how society is communicating today, certainly it's fair to say that the younger crowd would be quite familiar with terms, abbreviations, symbols, and so on that are very effective for them in their communication. And they would be recognized by their peer group with that use of language. And if you're able to speak with them in that way, that would be effective. That would be a useful thing. But if that's all that you can do and you stop and start there, then you are really reducing the options that you have for communicating in other venues. Well, with regard to receiving resumes, if I received a resume and I had a job to offer someone, and I saw a mistake, a grammatical mistake, and I didn't have any other options, there was only one person applying for the job, that would be one thing, and I would maybe have to take that person on as an employee. But that isn't the case usually. There are, in fact, many, perhaps dozens, hundreds of applications and resumes that come in. And if I were to receive, in that case, a resume with even one or two grammatical problems, it would immediately go into the waste paper basket. Take seriously the courses that are given in English and in grammar, report writing, and so on, because when you get into the workforce, you simply don't have that amount of time to give to the honing of those skills. So I would encourage you as a student to really take advantage of the time that you have as a student right now.
My name is Dr. George Nakhla, and I am a professor in the Chemical and Biochemical Engineering Department at Western, and simultaneously I hold the Salamander Chair in Environmental Engineering position here. My background is essentially civil engineering at the undergrad level and chemical and biochemical engineering at the graduate level. I teach courses related to air pollution and wastewater treatment, both biologically and physiochemically at the graduate and undergraduate level. My area of research expertise is biological nutrient removal from wastewaters, as well as conversion of organic waste into bioenergy, predominantly biohydrogen and biomethane. I definitely see a deterioration in communication skills, both in foreign trained engineers as well as domestic engineers. What I've witnessed is that it's taking me quite a bit more time in order to go through iterations before I could get a paper sent out for publication and review. In the past, 2 rounds of corrections were sufficient. Right now, I'm looking at anywhere between 3 to 4 rounds. Even at the undergraduate level, I notice that the students are communicating maybe not very poorly, I should say, but I think that they lack the etiquette of communication. I'm going to be very candid. I mean, if I receive a resume that's got a lot of typos and syntax and grammatical errors, as I mentioned before, this is a sign of, to me, carelessness, negligence, and obviously this would be somebody that I would not like to hire. I would advise all students to very seriously consider improving their communication skills, regardless of where they're from, where they're taking the courses, because at the end of the day, I think in this modern times of texting, smartphones, and everything, I think that we have compromised a lot on the communication of the English language. So my concern is that if this deteriorating trend continues, that the language itself is going to be lost, perhaps not in the imminent future, but definitely in the very long term.
Hi, my name is Crystal West, and I'm the Administrative Coordinator at Cohen Highley Lawyers. We're a full-service law firm in London, Ontario. We also have offices in Sarnia, Chatham, and Kitchener. And I have been with the company for 9.5 years. At Cohen Highley, we consider the written communication skills of our employees of the utmost importance. When they are sending out letters on behalf of the company, it's extremely important that they have strong grammar and language skills. As a recruiter, I would react strongly to substandard use of English. I think it's really important that when a candidate is submitting a resume and cover letter, that they double check everything that they have put in there and that it's as accurate as possible. During the recruitment process, we administer a grammar test for all potential candidates, and that does factor into our final decision when hiring. We interpret lack of English skills on cover letters and resumes as lack of attention to detail, I think, mostly, not poor language skills in a sense. I think it's really important that when you're submitting a resume and cover letter that you take the time to reread it. Is it saying exactly what you want it to say? Is it coming across how you want it to say? You definitely need to pay attention to your reader and think about what's going to attract them. How are you going to sell yourself? In my experience, written communication helps people to advance further in their careers and get promotions. It shows that you care about the company and you share in their beliefs. You are a representative of the company no matter whether you are writing something on their behalf or whether you're speaking on their behalf. For people working at our company, they must possess both good written and oral communication skills. It's very important when they're speaking to clients on the phone that they're clearly spoken and they use the appropriate language, as well as when they're writing that they double check that what the letter is saying is what they mean to say. I think the communication skill that's been most lacking in the people that we have hired is written and grammatical communication skills. I think the use of the theirs and its and when to use an apostrophe has definitely declined in the last little while. When we receive a resume with typos or other mistakes on it, it definitely plays a negative impact on that candidate's presentation, especially if our last name of the company, Highley, is spelled wrong. It shows a lack of attention to detail. Our final advice to Fanshawe students is to read. Keep yourself current, brush up on your skills, whether it be a newspaper or a novel. Anything that gives you slightly more of a reading element than Facebook or Twitter. I'd also suggest when you're putting together your cover letter and resume to make sure that you're rereading it and making sure that it says what you want it to say.
My name is Grant Harrison. I am currently work for Clintar Landscape Management, and we are a franchise landscaping company with 22 locations throughout Canada and the United States. And I am what I call field support. So I help owners with their businesses and on day-to-day problems that they have. I think communication skills are very important. We do a lot of correspondence, whether it's for timesheets, record keeping, that are still manually written down on paper, and it's important for billables, for recording incidents and stuff like that, that our staff still need to be able to write on paper and express what they need to do for that purpose in our business currently. Generally, when we receive resumes from potential employees, we do look at the grammar and the written English that's there. And typically, if there is a lot of corrections there, that they do usually get to the bottom of the pile. I think it's a lack of diligence on behalf of the person to take the time to get it proofread or have someone else take a look at it before handing it in to a potential employer for that. So just realizing that it is important, and if you're not strong in that area, just to be able to do that next step would go a long way for me. I think communication skills are huge in our industry, especially verbal, whether that's giving direction to a fellow employee or to a subcontractor, to be able to communicate clearly what needs to get done and the timelines and everything that goes with that. One final advice I have for students looking at communicating better is find someone that has that good communication background that you can take something to, either to be edited or to just to check your grammar before you hand it in, and that would be the best thing to do.
My name is Andrew Gale. I work for Canada Post Corporation here in London, Ontario. I am a manager of technical service employees. Engineering and maintenance is my department. When I sit across the room with you, like I am now, there's many ways for me to communicate. So I can communicate with my body language, I can communicate with my hands, I'm even communicating with my facial expressions and how I'm dressed. This all is coming into combination with my words that I choose. When you are writing or typing a communication, you only have one form of communication. There's only one chance that you have to communicate your objective clearly. And so it's extremely important. Poor English is a hang-up. It's a spot where people focus on and they got stuck on it and potentially miss your entire point of view with that one little mistake.
My name is Rose Welch and I am the manager for the customer support team here at FCT Default Solutions. From my perspective, I think that written communication skills are extremely important. If I even receive a resume with, misspelled words or, the wrong form of a word, it right away goes into the no pile. I don't go any further because attention to detail is something that's huge for me. And if someone, to me, hasn't spelled the words correctly, maybe they, one, didn't pay attention to detail, and two, didn't take the necessary time to ensure it was correct. Right. So, I wouldn't even consider that person. Right. Being good at your job and what you're doing is one thing, but you have to be able to communicate well. And, honestly, the people in my line of business anyway who communicate well are the people that are recognized by, higher up people, because what we do is fairly complicated, and you have to not be able to explain something, as to what happened. You have to be able to convey that via an email. Right. Make sure that it's clear and you've pointed out what needs to be done, if anything. I mean, one of the things we do, we have quite a few kind of training courses that our head office would put on around effective ways to communicate, that type of thing. We would research the internet for ideas on better ways to communicate. Usually we have somebody who's been here a bit longer review somebody's emails for a period of time before they go out and try to point out, this could have been worded better had you said this instead of this, or, don't use the date with numbers, let's spell it out properly, that kind of thing.
Hi, my name is Henry Janzen. My most recent position would have been working as a manufacturing manager at Trojan Technologies, a local here in London water purification equipment manufacturing organization. Written communication skills of employees that I had responsibility for was very important to me. One of the major issues in manufacturing is to make sure that communication, that instructions are clearly clearly stated, and that people who need to take action based on those instructions can understand them. So written communication is very important, has been very important for any of my employees. I think that if a person has good written communication skills, their ability to get promotions and to advance further in their careers is enhanced significantly. It reflects on a person how well they can communicate, how they are perceived by their peers, how they are perceived by people that they would end up reporting to. It all is very important. All four communication skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, are, in my opinion, critical for anyone working in any field, really. You need to be able to read instructions, you need to be able to read reports, you need to be able to determine what it is that is required of you as a result of reading, and that will then require you to either tell somebody else about what it is that you've read, or to respond with a written commentary or written report. And then the other thing on the speaking side is that you may need to make presentations of those same materials. And so all four of those skills, in my opinion, are very critical, and anything you can do to enhance those skills will stand you in very good stead, especially in terms of being promotable. Very important as a foundation for your career. The communication skill that I would consider most lacking in people that I have hired is written communication. In writing business correspondence, it is critical to have correct grammar, especially if the business correspondence is outside of the organization. You are you are wanting to put your best foot forward, your best face on to the outside world, to your associates, to other organizations to whom you're writing, and so you need to have good grammar, you need to have good writing to make the absolute best impression possible. The logical structure of business correspondence is very important. The reason for any business correspondence is to make sure that the message that you are intending to deliver is actually received and understood by the person you're sending the correspondence to. So unless there is a logical, organized correspondence that you are creating, your message likely will not get across.
I definitely think good written communication skills can help people get a promotion faster, and it wouldn't be the only thing, but it would definitely be part of their collection of skills that a manager would be looking for. If they didn't have it, it would definitely be, they may get overlooked. The written communication skills of the people we've hired over the last few years, I've noticed they use a lot of really quick shortcut things, but we've addressed it, and they've gone back to writing a little more complete sentences, better grammar. Also, a little thing I've noticed is the educational level of the people we hire. Those who finish high school tend to struggle a little bit more with the communication. Those who finish secondary education, like a college or a university, they tend to do a little bit better. Definitely better in that area. If I received a resume with typos or errors, I would definitely, it would make me second guess my decision. I'd be like, if this candidate can't get it accurate, is he or she gonna have problems getting it accurate when they're working for me? Or are they gonna have problems communicating? It just makes me second guess, is this the right candidate? And I may just put the resume off to the side and look for other candidates that are a little more accurate, a little more professional. Correct grammar is important when you're communicating with your client. If you have the correct grammar being used in your emails or quote, they will view you as more professional. the better you communicate in the business world, the more successful you will be. There's less frustration between coworkers, and there's more accurate communication between your customers and also on behind the scenes with your suppliers. You'll order in the right thing, the customer will get the right thing, and everyone's a lot happier.
Michelle Clavet. I've been working at TD Bank for 18 years, and I'm currently manager of the application services team, managing about 7 employees, doing mostly EasyWeb, ATM, and phone channels registrations. Primary source of communication right now is emails. It is very much an environment where we're on the phone as well as we're doing emails at the same time. So being able to communicate that really quickly, no abbreviations, no errors or spelling errors within your emails makes it very quick to communicate. You don't come off as unorganized and as if you're rushing, and it puts a bit of trust factor in your emails as well when you have that kind of sense that you can trust that person because they know what they're talking about. There's no typos in there. They didn't rush. They've put thought into what they're saying, and I think that adds value to the content and the value of the person that it's coming from too. It establishes the person's sort of trust factor, right? Their values and the fact that you're getting a solid answer from them. So when it comes down to the hiring process, I do hiring and I do co-op hiring as well. So generally what happens is I'll submit my request for a position and I will get maybe 30 to 50 applicants for a position. So it takes some time to go through every single cover letter and every single application, but I'm telling you, if I do see a typo or some kind of abbreviation put in the cover letter or put into the resume, I do look at it twice and possibly put it aside into a maybe pile. So as a final advice to the students, I recommend focusing on the formal business language communication skills and not transitioning those texting, Facebook, short terms into business communications. There is definitely a gap between what you're texting your friends and your family versus the communication that goes on around the business area, the etiquette, the corporate language. There's enough of the lingo that you need to learn when you get a job versus adding more text and lingo that people don't know, and you got to understand the age group too of the people that you're coming into. And maybe there will be one day where you're texting your coworkers, but right now it's not what's happening, and it's not what's happening in the next 10 to 15 years.
My name is Kent Eden. I'm the Community Branch Manager with Royal Bank. Community Branch Manager meaning I manage 2 branches, so Wonderland and Southdale Branch and Lambeth Branch here in London. I've been with Royal Bank now 4 years. Prior to that, I still worked in the financial industry. I worked at TD for 10 years, and I was recruited away from TD by Royal Bank, and been enjoying the journey at Royal ever since. So written communication at the branch is extremely important. At the bank, we've actually lost business because of poor communication. I had an individual that was corresponding with a client, and they had grammatical errors. They had kind of slang and very lax language in the communication, and we ended up losing a sizable deal that the client was very pleased to give us the business, and it was almost $500,000 that we lost because of poor communication. For me as a hiring manager, when I see the use of poor English, it represents to me someone that's not dedicated and showing care about their own professional appearance. So for us in a branch setting, a lot of what we do with clients is face-to-face, so a lot of verbal communication for sure. Listening and using a lot of nonverbal cues from clients is going to be paramount to understand and empathize. But after the client leaves, there's going to be follow-up. And that follow-up comes in general ways, whether it be by a letter to the client after the fact, thanking them for the visit, or in correspondence on a maybe less frequent basis, where it be by email correspondence. So that communication is going to be critical, and if we're not representing ourselves as professionals with lazy grammar skills or less than quality communication, it's going to impact that reputation and impact the relationship. When I look at a resume and it has a typo in it, my first initial response is to just throw it in the recycling bin. I pause, and before hitting the recycling bin, I will read through it. One mistake can be a common error, and I think we're human and we can make a mistake, but if it's riddled with errors, it doesn't make the grade and it'll go right in the shred bin. In the most recent hires that we've done, we have candidates that are very strong in verbal communication, and the lacking skill for them is in correspondence by either email or written communication with clients. More often than not, we're going to be following up with clients by a letter or by email, and they're not prepared and they're not ready to write a letter or to communicate with the client by email. So anytime I draft up a correspondence to a client or even to a regional vice president or president, I always read the email back out to myself aloud. More often than not, when I read it out loud, I actually pick up on mistakes that I've made myself, or I've missed a word, or I've left something out, or it just didn't make sense, and I've had to go back and rewrite the letter. And I find that that's actually saved me. It takes a little bit more time, but I'm pleased with the correspondence at the end of it, that it's going to represent me in a positive light.
Hello, my name is Henry Thuss. I am an employee of CIBC Wood Gundy in the position of First Vice President. In my role, I have a team of 5 individuals, of which are administration and as well other financial advisors. So I guess the question is, how important is it to me, the communication skills of my employees? First of all, I have to say that in our type of business, where we're interacting with clients not only on the telephone but also in terms of written communication. Written communication is very important because it offers information that has to be accurate, it has to be concise, and in doing so it provides an image of the organization. A good communication provides an image of the organization that is very positive, but not only that, it gives the indication that the individual has integrity and has knowledge of the material that he or she is communicating. As a manager in responding to a substandard form of English in terms of communication, I would certainly act negatively, and the reason being is that it does present an unprofessional image of the corporation and also of the individual. In our organization, where we are interacting with clients who on their financial affairs, poor written communication, whether it's verbal or written rather, can have consequences in terms of financial loss to the organization or to the individual. How important is grammar when writing business correspondence? And I have to say that it is likely the most important of all the context of a business letter. If I were to receive a resume that indicates a fair number of typos or grammar errors, quite frankly, I would respond very negatively. And the reason being is that it does present the face of the individual that is writing that resume. And if that person is applying for a position that requires written communication to present the corporation or the individual, then it's very important to present that in a very professional way. Do I have ways in which I can improve my employees' writing skills? And to answer that question, I would only draw back on my own experience, which a number of years ago, I was struggling with written communication in terms of a business context. And in speaking to my manager about that issue, I felt, or he felt, that it might be appropriate if I took a business writing course, which I did. And I can tell you that it helped immensely.
The written communication skills of our employees vary depending on the position that we want to employ them for. So someone who's doing strictly accounting procedures is not as important, but someone who is in communication as with customers or needs to follow up, it's very, very important to have written communication skills. Also, inter-office skills. When you're communicating between employees in the company, memos, it's really important to be specific, precise, accurate, and understandable. So clear language, simple, and to the point. So the worst thing is confusion. Concerned about 2 things if I'd received a resume with typos in it or clearly poor communication skills. The first one is capacity. Do they have the capacity to do the job? Maybe it's a lack of formal education, and it would make me question whether they're equipped to do the job properly. The second thing is what I call diligence. They may in fact have the capacity, but they were not careful enough to review their note to make sure that it was proper, that the language was clear, that the grammar was proper. We're not looking for sophisticated language, but we're looking for basic ability. And when I don't see basic ability, it would make me tend to disregard the application more. We're looking for capable people, and you always want to promote your best people. One, it motivates them, and it makes them strive. The other thing I do look for is for people who are willing to improve themselves. So people that have sort of reached a plateau but want to go deeper, take more language skills. I always commend it. We used to send employees on courses to help both written and verbal communication skills. The kind of communication skills that are essential for our company, again, depending, people that work directly with the customers, it's more than just the words you use, it's the tone of voice, it's the attitude, it's the body language. So it's amazing how communication's much more than just the words you use. However, not using the proper words and not being able to make it clear what you're in fact trying to say can harm the image of the company. And I think it's really important to embrace sort of a broader approach to communication. It's harder to find people that the basic skills of people coming out of high school, that the qualities in fact deteriorated. That's what the feedback I've been getting from my managers. I think the logical structure of writing is very, very important. It helps people track and follow what they're trying to say. Erratic writing, sentence structure out of order, thoughts not sequentially postured are really not good communication skills. So I think it's really, really important to have logical, sequential, beginning properly, inviting people into the discussion in the letter, the written correspondence, explaining the intent and content of the letter, and then closing properly, closing the thoughts, and closing respectfully is really, really important. It is important business communication to follow, etiquette. My final advice to students regarding communication: make it a priority. I'd say a couple practical things. I say the first thing is, if you're not a reader, start reading. The more you read, the better your communication skills develop. And secondly, start practicing writing, even practice with your friends. I think it's important, and not the texting kind of, improper English, but proper English, and get feedback from people.
My name is Dr. Gillian Kernaghan, and I'm the President and CEO of St. Joseph's Healthcare London. St. Joseph's is a multi-sited healthcare organisation. We have 17 clinical sites with 5 main sites. We have about 4,200 employees, and we have about 900 physicians who provide clinical care here. And every year we train about 2,000 students of every health science discipline within the healthcare system. We provide care for people who have mental illness, have injuries. We have high-end robotic surgery, and we care for people who are aging and people who have lots of conditions like diabetes and chronic lung disease, and those conditions that tend to stay with you for a lifetime. Written communication skills are very important of our employees. If you're a care provider, written communication skills are essential because you're communicating to your colleagues in a clinical environment, and how you communicate is important from a quality and a safety aspect of the care we provide. If you don't work in direct patient care and you work in support areas, written communication skills are really important as well, because you are communicating to your colleagues in follow-up when change of shift, because we're a 24/7 operation, and you are handing off your work to other people. It's very important that you communicate both the risks and the priorities. And then people in our organization communicate to other healthcare providers, other organizations, to the government, to donors, and to the public in general. If we can't write about who we are and what we do and communicate with clarity, we won't receive the funding and support and the donor support that we need to do what we need to do on behalf of the patients of this organization. As a manager and senior manager, obviously the first encounter I have with people is when they apply for jobs. If I see people in a resume and applying with a covering letter that they cannot put sentences together and cannot communicate in a manner that is coherent with good grammar and good spelling, I just actually discard those applications because it is a sign that people haven't cared enough to put appropriate language together in their applications, and also I don't have confidence that they would be then able to translate that into job performance when they come into our organization. So that's the first time that I would see poor written skills. It just wouldn't be an entry point into the organization. Good written communication skills can help people advance in their careers. Good written communication skills help you to convey your thoughts. It helps you to articulate your thought processes. So when we ask people to take on a project and we ask them to write up that project or write up their recommendations or conclusions, we want to be able to follow people's thought processes in a written format. Good oral and good written skills are fundamental to people working in our organization. People need to be able to succinctly, with clarity, speak in language that the person receiving the communication understands. I'll start with the fact that we are an organization that cares for patients. We have patients who come to us with a grade 3 education, and we have patients who come to us with a PhD. And as a care provider, we need to be able to change our level of communication to be able to speak in a manner that the person receiving it understands. So if I speak to somebody with a PhD in language that somebody with a grade 3 education understands, it will come across as insulting. If I speak to somebody with a grade 3 education, like somebody who has a PhD, they're not going to understand a word I say. So my obligation as a frontline care provider in our core business is to make sure that we're communicating in a way that people understand. That would be verbal skills, but it's also in written skills. We give written communication to our patients to make sure they know what the follow-up and follow-through is in order to ensure their care plan is followed and they understand it. I need to be able to write that in a manner that the person receiving that information understands. I find that there's a trend to having difficulty to express complex concepts in a written way. We tend to communicate, unfortunately, in bullet points. A lot of our newer generation has communicated through PowerPoint, which is just fragments of sentences with pieces of concepts. Being able to articulate the complexity of concepts in a written manner is not nearly as strong as it was a number of years ago. The other challenge we have is you can always tell when people have relied on spell check and grammar check, because the spell check doesn't pick up the subtlety of the English language when there is there and there and there, and people have the wrong word in the context. And so you can always tell when people haven't taken the time to proofread their work and don't know enough to be able to correct those spelling errors. And also the grammar has got to be contextual as well. And when people don't know how to put a sentence together with right phrases and pauses, you can tell the difference in a well-written document to a person that's been used to really communicating in snippets and bullet points. And that's a challenge for us to be able to be grasping the concepts that we have to today in this complex world. If I think about the communication skills that is most lacking in people that we have hired, one of the communication skills that's lacking is the ability to convey your meaning in a way that the other person would understand. I find that people often will try and explain themselves, and if the person doesn't understand, they just use longer and longer explanations as opposed to being able to, in a synthesized way, convey meaning and intent. I believe that correct grammar is very important in business correspondence. It's one of those things that when you're reading something that is got very poor grammar, you pick it up right away. And it gives you a perception of the sender if grammar is not well put together. And I don't mean, there are people who are fanatical about the subtleties of grammar, but good basic sentence structure with proper grammar is important. I'm not suggesting you need to be a grammar guru, but you do need to know how to put a proper sentence together and a proper paragraph together. And the logical structure of business correspondence is very important, that we don't convey judgment where it's inappropriate to convey judgment. The choice of words can convey whether we're feeling that we're being victimized, whether the other person is picking on us or villainizing us, as we call it. We can convey a sense of helplessness by our choice of how we phrase and frame. The choice of adjectives and adverbs is incredibly important when you look at business correspondence, because it can convey emotion that you never intended to convey, but the reader would pick that up based on your choice of phraseology or the choice of particularly adverbs and adjectives when you're putting business correspondence together. Very important to pay attention to. The most important skill, I believe, in healthcare, but in most businesses, is your ability to communicate, both verbally and written. And depending on your role, one may be more important than the other, but both are important, because there's times you will be called upon to make sure that for the safety of the people you're serving or for the health of the business, you need to be able to communicate in a way that is clear and is succinct and is professional and conveys an element of professionalism that represents your organization.